Welcome to the OTP pod. We bring you uncensored, unfiltered football talk. I'm your host for today, standing in for OJ, and we welcome back Mr. Y. How you feeling, my brother?
Bro, good, bro. More blessed, bro. Glad to be back. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. You know, our team's top of the league. Can't ask for much more. Well, we can ask for a bit more, but we're top of the league. Glad to have you back. We've missed your expertise, missed your tactical analysis. And let's just get into it, man.
Bro, let's get into it, bro. Been a good weekend of football, man.
How have you been enjoying it anyway? How have you been enjoying the football in your time off?
You know what? I think it's an interesting season because I feel like the three teams that have come up are poor. If we're to keep it 100, but I do feel like other teams have improved. So when you compare it to like last season, you've got the likes of Liverpool that are a lot better. You've got Tottenham that are a lot better. You've got Villa who picked up from last season, but are ultimately better because they started off with Gerrard in charge. So I think it's, I've seen quite a few shouts online and, on Twitter saying they feel like the standards dropped, but I kind of think I think there's kind of like an equilibrium where the three teams that have come up have worsened the league, but I feel like a lot of teams have improved in quality. So, United are probably at the same levels where they were last season. Brighton are struggling a bit more due to injuries, but they're still not far off where they were last season anyway. Like on their day, they can give anyone a game. So I still feel the league is competitive, man. It's very competitive. And you saw that with, numerous fixtures, the Forest and Brighton game and, Newcastle, Chelsea. You're seeing it constantly, man. Even the Brentford game and how much headache they gave Arsenal. So, most importantly, even going to the Liverpool game, let's keep it 100. Like Liverpool went to the Etihad and didn't, last season, I swear they held 4?
4-1? Yeah, 4-1 last
season. I'm trying to say to you. So, to go there and hold their own, it just shows, isn't it? It's a different league, man. And City ain't really ran away from it. You see, look where Villa are in comparison to where City are right now. It's actually mad when you deep it.
What's the gap? 4 points with 5 points between them? 4 points?
No, I think it's less. I think it's 3.
3 between them, and they're 4 behind us.
Yeah. So it's mad, bro. So when people say it's not competitive, I'm like, well, boy, if Villa are behind Pep's treble winning side, only a few points behind, and you've got Tottenham there as well, and and as bad as United have been, and everyone's been ripping United, I think United are 6, and they're 6 points off the top 4. Technically the most informed team in the league. It's just mad still. So interesting. What about yourself? How are you finding it?
Yeah, it's really tight in all areas apart from the bottom. The bottom, I think, is setting its own little agenda with the teams that come up. Obviously, Everton's been thrown into that with their points deduction. They were in it last year as well, so they might have been in, but they looked a bit better until they got the points deduction. Obviously, they didn't have a good showing against United, but we'll get onto that later. But yeah, the top of the league is very tight. If I'm talking about individually, Arsenal have played a lot of the big teams already. Liverpool have played quite a lot of the big teams already. Where someone like the Aston Villas and stuff haven't played everyone yet, so they might start.
True.
I think it's really tight. Injuries are playing a big part in the season so far already as well. A lot of teams are missing players. So I guess give it another month or two, end of January, and we'll see what the table's looking like then.
Yeah, man. The whole Everton thing is mad. I feel like they were comfortably not going to be in a relegation battle this season because, they picked up a good amount of wins prior to the points deduction. But I still feel like if there's any season to have that points deduction, it's this season. Because Burnley are just, it's sad, isn't it? To see Company going out the way he's going out. You already get too many managers of colour in the league, and then you see how he's performing, and just
I guess, but Company's way of playing is not for Burnley. It's the wrong club, the wrong matchup. In the Championship, you can get away with it, play a nice football. In the Premier League, I just don't feel like the players that required level to do damage to other teams in the league. So I feel like there's other teams that do it and they do it to a higher standard, but I feel like they've got a better quality of player.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we've seen teams come up from the Championship in the past and try and play this football. I mean, Swansea probably being the most notable, like, you know what I mean, he came up with Leon Britton and them kind of guys. Yeah, I think he had Nathan Dyer and, you know what I mean, like, they came up playing ball the right way, innit? I think Joe Allen was still there them times. So you've had teams come from the Championship and still been able to play that, you know what I mean?
But they had like a different level of threat. Like you mentioned, like Nathan Dyer, for example, like his pace. You knew what he was about. Then you had like Wayne Routledge on the other side. Then they got Michu. They had Bonnie. Like they had players. They had Ashley Williams at the back. They had different players that could do different things and cause different problems, get you out of different problems. But I think this Burnley team, there's not many. When I look at the team, there's not many players that I can look at and be like,
yeah, no, there's not, man. And I think they've gone down a similar model to Southampton when you really deep it. I think they've gone down that whole route of trying to sign really young, up-and-coming players and develop them and hopefully, obviously, sell them on for more money. And I think, obviously, probably the bigger model is probably more like the Brentford and Brighton model, where they've had, you know, good young talents, recruited well, developed them, and then sold them on for profits, and then invested back into the squad, and then obviously just kept on rinse and repeat, you know, until they're able to kind of build a solid Premier League side. But yeah, man, it's interesting, man. I'm enjoying the season, man. It's nice. I don't think I've seen as many teams as close to the top as I've seen in a while, which makes it interesting from that perspective. I think it's going to be a much more competitive title race, a much more competitive race for Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. It's going to be real interesting because when you think about, when you deep how many teams are up, I think the top three are probably the ones that you'd say are yeah, I mean, cut in stone to be Champions League places. And then you're thinking, all right, depending on what United do in the CL as well, who's going to get that fourth spot? Because fifth spot might not even be it this season. So you're like, right, is it going to be Newcastle? Is it going to be Tottenham? Is it going to be United? You know what I mean? Villa. You know what I mean? So it's gonna get interesting, man. And December coming up, ramping up. I think there's 2 games a week coming up as well. So yeah, man.
It's funny that you didn't mention Chelsea in that little.
Bro, I don't. Chelsea got big problems right now, man. Big problems, man. And I think we'll get onto it. And you know what I mean.
All right, well, let's dive into the biggest game of the weekend. It was first v second. As the weekend started, it was the first game. How do you think it went for both teams? Let's just start with City. How do you feel like their game plan went and the result?
For City, I thought City were a lot better in the second half than they were in the first half. I thought the first half was pretty even, if I'm to be very honest with you. I think when you look at chances, I think there was obviously Haaland had his chance, which he dispatched as Haaland does. There was a chance for Darwin Núñez when Szoboszlai played him in, and he kind of hesitated, took too much time. So I thought the first half was pretty even. I think Liverpool would probably kind of went into that first half thinking a bit aggrieved that they were 1-0 down. But then come second half, I thought City were a lot better. I think they had a bit more control. And could have been up, and should have really been 2-0 up. I think Alisson had that dirty fumble, right? And, I don't want to bring this on to Arsenal, but it's just the officiating in the Premier League is just a joke, because if that's a push, right, and they're talking about, then what's Joe Linton's? So the irony of it, innit? But keepers get away with murder.
Yeah, they get away with murder. I think the only thing that you could say that would save Alisson is that his hand was on his arm, and obviously keepers use their arms. So that's the only thing I could say. Me as an Arsenal fan, I'm on this, like, if we're holding that, then you lot should hold that as well. But
yeah. You know what? I don't even have that thing. I don't even subscribe to that. I just want it to be consistent, because you know what? Yeah, if I see if what happened against Arsenal happens 4 or 5 times in a row, I just be like, all right, cool. That's how they're officiating now. So that's fair, isn't it? It's all about just like I can take that. Right, but then it's like if you officiate one game in one way and it's a foul, and then the next game it's not a foul, then it's like, well, you lot are just picking and choosing when to follow your
Yeah,
rules.
it was really soft. Like, yeah, obviously we watch the majority of Arsenal games, so we can refer back to it. But when we played West Ham in the Carabao Cup a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
Their first goal was an own goal from Ben White, but Ramsdale was coming up to it and got fouled by the keeper, you could say. And it's just like, well, is that a foul? And how much more is Akanji doing to Alisson than Souček was doing to Ramsdale?
Well, I'll give you a better one, because that one, at least with that one, there was no VAR involved, right? So you could argue, right, the referee, the officials never saw it in the game, so they can't call it with no VAR. That's what happens, right? But there was one I remember last season. I think it was against Leicester. I think Trossard might have scored from outside the box.
Yeah, Ben White.
Ben White did a little something to the goalkeeper. I think he was hand on his shoulder again, and that was yeah. I mean, it's just it's interesting how they pick and choose, and they talk about force and not knowing how much force is applied, but it's all a joke. But going back to the game, and I mean, I don't think City were. I don't think City were breathtaking personally. I don't think they were at their fluid best.
It's funny that you say that, because I don't feel like, and throughout this season so far, I don't feel like they've been breathtaking at all. Like, they've had moments in game, especially like against Newcastle. For me, it was one of the most dominant 1-0s I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But really, and against Man United, they absolutely slaughtered them as well. But I haven't really seen them at their best consistently too often. I know that they normally come a lot better after January, so maybe. But yeah, so for me, they haven't been at their sparkling best, and it just gives encouragement for the rest of us.
I mean, I think what we're seeing at City right now is a Kevin De Bruyne-sized hole in that team. Because when you look at even creativity, I mean, earlier on in the season, I was giving Alvarez a lot of props because he was doing a little bit of everything. He was the main man. He was that little bit of magic. But slowly, as the games have gone on, you've kind of seen his influence kind of like diminish, right? He's not really doing the same things that he was earlier on in the season, or having the same influence. And when you look at Haaland in particular, and I always say with Haaland, like, I know I call him the souped up Inzaghi, but that's what he is really. He's the most lethal goal striker in world football, right? He will get you goals, but he doesn't have anything much more than that in his game. So what he relies on is a chief creator, and you've got to feed him. You have to feed him. You want to see the best out of him, you've got to feed him, right? And when you look at how many chances he gets in a game, and how many opportunities, not much, like, unless it's through crossing opportunities, the likes of Doku or Grealish or Foden, cutbacks, etc. He's not really getting fed in the same way he was when KDB's in that side. So I think that's always been a position that City were going to have to address, because obviously KDB's getting more injury prone. But I think it's becoming more like prominent right now that they've got a real big hole in that team that they need to fill. And if KDB continues as well to be injury prone, it's going to be an issue for them.
Still on City, what do you make of Doku's game?
You know what, yeah? I thought Doku had a very okay game. I think it was overstated a lot. I'm a big fan of Doku, and I'm sure you already know my opinion on having players like Doku in the side. I think it's integral. And I've always said, like, you need players that are physically able to change games, because when you've got technical players on the pitch and it's all good, but sometimes these technical players can have off days, right? But when you've got somebody who could just do things, who's a physical specimen and a freak who could just, shift gears or do something and just change the game with that natural ability, it adds a different dimension. And I think he's added that to City's team. But I also think it was over kind of stated about how influential he was and how much he could Trent, because I don't think it was as clear cut as a lot of people try to make it. I mean, I was seeing like Trent got, absolutely roasted as well. People were trying to say, and I didn't really look at it like that way.
Yeah, I don't think that he had a couple of runs. Some of them were not even against Trent, his dribbles. But yeah, he went past Trent a couple of times. Trent done him a couple of times. I didn't think it was one-way traffic between them. Clearly not, because Trent ended up scoring in that game anyway. But I thought Trent got forward well. and didn't find it too hard to get forward on his side either. So Doku wasn't doing his work going backwards as much as he could. And maybe that was a tactic employed, maybe it wasn't. But I think Doku played all right. I'd give him like a 6 out of 10 if I had to rate it, 6.5. He had a nice cut back to Alvarez, and Alvarez skied it over the bar, which I think he should have done better with. He had a couple chances where he got to the byline and then cut it back and couldn't find anyone. He had one where he found Haaland, I think it was in the second half, and Alisson's made a good save, and I think that's where Liverpool go on and score their equaliser, actually. But yeah, as much has been made out about his impact on the game and his impact against Trent on social media, I didn't quite see it in the game. And I think Trent being Trent, and obviously the agenda on Trent is that he can't defend at all. It just always enhances the way people talk about him. So it can go past him once and all of a sudden he can't ever defend. He's never been able to defend. And I don't think that's truly the case. And I think Doku would actually strip most right backs.
Yeah.
So is it a matter of Trent can't defend, or is it a matter of Doku's really good at one-on-one situations?
No, not even just that, man. Let's keep it 100. And I said this before. Earlier on, when we were shooting about Van Dijk, we were talking about Van Dijk in the beginning of the season, right? And I was saying that when you leave plays isolated and with large spaces to defend, a lot of defenders naturally will struggle. That's not a strength for a lot of defenders. You will see the best defenders struggle in those situations. And, I kind of felt sorry for Trent at times, because Mo Salah doesn't come back and track back. If you look at most teams, they'll come back and support. If you've got Doku running at your right back, you will have your winger come and tucking in to help. You know what I mean? But there was loads of times where Trent was having to deal with the both, like Bernardo Silva coming over with the underlap. Who was playing? I think Ake was on Doku's side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ake making that overlapping run as well. So it wasn't like there was a lot asked of Trent in that game, and I kind of felt sorry for him. But I also felt he did well, man. And I think to move on to Liverpool, I thought Trent in himself is a cheat code. Because the amount of times I saw him in that game, I remember in that first half, I think there was 2 instances when he had the ball and he literally, for most people, it's a clearance, but for him, it's a pass. And
the left foot.
There was one with the left foot and there was one with the right foot on the box when he found Salah, and I was like, okay, this guy, his ability to relieve pressure, right, and find teammates with his passing is just different level. Because it already takes out the whole of City's press and takes Liverpool, 40, 50 yards up the pitch. And that in itself is something else. And I thought Trent was Trent's, world class, man. I know he can't defend. He's not, I don't want to say can't. I don't know he's not a strong defender. That's not his natural game. But there's more to his game than just defending. And if you're able to play to your strengths, because I think that's with everybody, you've got to play to their strengths.
Yeah,
the same way I was talking about Haaland, yeah.
I think that's where people miss it, because if Trent was an attacking player, someone in the forward line, let's say, and he had to possess the top kind of qualities that he had, you always give your attacking players the best possible options to do what they need to do in the game.
Right.
Well, I need to put you in the best possible positions, so I'm going to sacrifice this man, because if I sacrifice this man, you can do what you need to do.
Bro.
Trent is so good at what he does that Klopp needs to sacrifice someone else to carry his weight so Trent can do what he does. And that's what was happening when he had the Henderson, Fabinho midfield. But now he doesn't have that. Trent gets exposed.
But even when you deep it, when you really deep it, it's the same thing. Look, I call Haaland a suit top and Saga, yeah, cool. That's who he is. But we're not no one sits around saying, why is Haaland not doing Mbappe stuff? Why is he not busting step overs and taking the ball 50 yards? Why is he not bringing the ball down on his chest and, doing Harry Kane passes? No one's talking to him about him like that. They just expect him to play his game. You give Trent the ball, you let him float around the pitch, you let him deliver from half spaces, them early crosses, passing, you let him get into, positions where he can shoot from outside the box. you got one. There's nobody in world football that can kind of do what he can on the ball from that position, you know. And you just got it's one of the things you got to take the good with the bad, the smooth with the rough, and that's what it is with Trent. And it's also funny because it's like he's so much better than any of Liverpool's midfield on the ball. Like I thought,
some blocks is decent,
but nowhere near as good on the ball. If you think about like as a midfielder, I like Szoboszlai, like good running, good energy, you know, can strike a ball. But we're not going to sit here and put Szoboszlai like in a creative realms of a Trent or like a De Bruyne. Like that's not in his game.
Yeah, it's hard to put anyone. Like you're comparing Trent to De Bruyne. It's very hard to put anyone near them two.
But I wouldn't even call Szoboszlai like the most creative midfielder. I just call him a great box to box. I wouldn't like even if you look at his numbers. Like I think he's got one goal, and I think he's got 1 or 2 assists at max. So it's not like he's a midfielder that creates loads and loads. But yeah, going back to their midfield, I thought Curtis Jones was a horrible pick for the team. Like I thought he was completely
on the previous show, OJ wanted Curtis Jones in.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I heard, bro. Yeah, that's OJ for you, though, isn't it? Man's here for vibes. But yeah, bro. Jones was lost on that pitch, man, and you could see it. And on the ball, he was struggling. Off the ball, doesn't have the energy, the pace. I thought Liverpool looked a lot better in the second half when Gravenberch came on because he's got a bit more legs, a bit more running power. And I think it was actually him that influenced the goal because I think he ran across Rodri, powered past Rodri.
Do you know what was weird about that? That's normally where I expect Rodri to commit a profession.
Oh, yeah.
And I was waiting for it. And I was like, did Gravenberch just not go down for it? Because he kind of grabbed him and then he kind of let him go. Or did Rodri just say, you know what? This is like, he's far enough away. I don't need to do the professional. Because there was still so much to be done to score. But normally that's why I see Rodri commit them little fouls, just stop everything, forget it. And I was surprised.
But that's the Rodri trick, man. He'll give you that little tug and then he'll let go and then you'll fall over and the referee will give him a booking because he's still not tugging him. Yeah. It's not like a blatant one. But I don't know how he's got that trick on like under wraps. But yeah, no. I felt like he done well though, man, when he came on. He just gave him more running power and more ability to drive forward. And that's what you need. When you ain't got technical midfielders, and we discussed this before, when you ain't got technical midfielders who are passers, you need athletes. You need people that can drive with the ball and carry the ball. And that's what Gravenberch gave him because Jones went offering nothing. I think we need to have a conversation on Darwin as well, man. Like I do like him a lot.
That was so. I asked you about Trent. I asked you, and Darwin was the next person I was coming to. What are your thoughts on the road?
Darwin. Look, I like what Darwin has as a player, the profile of what he has, but he very much reminds me of an Adebayor, right? Where you see him when he first came to Arsenal, he had moments where he had like this nice composure, but then there was moments where he also had like this rush of blood, and he just lost all composure. And he'd overdo things. He'll take an extra touch, or he'll have like a wayward finish. You know what I mean? And for him, I feel like the game it's more of a mental thing. So it's easily correctable because you can see he's got different finishes in his bag. He's got, great running power, good strength, good pace. So I feel like it's one of those things that it can go at any given moment. It can go click, and then you have yourself a striker who's just a killer. But he just needs to find that composure, man. That composure. Because
do you think him playing in Liverpool's team, who obviously Klopp's way of playing is very, I wouldn't say it's 100 miles per hour anymore, but it's still quite fast paced in terms of how they transition, how they get their opportunities and stuff. Do you think he'd be better suited in like a team like City or Arsenal that give you different chances?
No, not really, because I feel like if you look at him, especially when you saw what he was doing at Benfica, he very much shines in those moments where he's got where things are at 100 miles an hour. I just think the pressure at Liverpool and being at a bigger club and having more eyes on you and big games and whatnot, and then also knowing that you've kind of struggled it in the past is also playing on his mind. And we've seen that with loads of places. We see it with Havertz at Arsenal. You've seen it break. You saw what Ramsdale at Arsenal. Do you know what I'm trying to say to you? When players are devoid of confidence, it can happen. So I don't think it's necessarily Liverpool's playing style because he still gets a lot of chances. And the chance of when Szoboszlai played him through, he took the extra touch. He could have, like we saw, like not to go into other games, but we saw Haaland in that game, one touch bang, right? Quick out of his feet bang. We saw Trent do it, who's a right back, from the edge of the box. I think we saw Ollie Watkins do it.
Yeah.
So it's all about the mindset of the striker, that ability to think, I need to get this out of my first touch. I need to get this ball out of my feet, and I need to get my strike across goal, right? Because he was in a great position to bend it into the corner against Edison. Another thing I want to talk about though is Alisson, because I'm a big Alisson fan. Yeah,
I tweeted about it the day after everything settled. Obviously, Ramsdale had his performance.
Yeah,
and I woke up on Sunday and I watched Match of the Day. Because I did watch the Liverpool City game, but during the game, maybe it's because I'm not a Liverpool fan, I didn't sit there and watch Alisson and criticize him the way Arsenal fans will sit there and watch Ramsdale and scrutinize every single thing that he's doing. Then when I looked back on Match of the Day, I watched it back on the Match of the Day, I was like, yo, Alisson, you cost your team all the points, but you could have cost them the whole game. Yeah. And you were just lucky enough not to, and you're not really being as scrutinized as obviously Aaron Ramsdale in this case. But then first of all, Alisson does it a lot less. So he's a lot less prone to make them mistakes. And then the saves that he does make happen at a lot higher rate than when you're comparing him to the likes of Raya and Ramsdale. That's how I saw it. So I was like, can I really criticize you? I was more angry at the fact that no one said anything about Alisson.
Yeah, you know what? Alisson has enough credit in the bank, innit? So you're not going to get onto Alisson in that same way. But I'm tired, of this whole Alisson-Edison debate with kicking. I don't know why they're compared, because they're not in the same league.
First, no goalkeeper in the world can pass like Edison. Right.
But I'm just saying to you, like, I don't even think he's of the same thing. Like, I would put, right, and I know you're going to sit here and say, I think this is wild, but I've said this before. I put more Onana in the likes of an Edison. No, listen, I put him more in the likes of an Edison in terms of he's more of a distributor than an actual out-and-out goalkeeper. For me, Alisson is the most balanced goalkeeper in world football, in the sense of he's decent with his feet, but he's a phenomenal shot stopper. Good at handling, great at one-on-ones, right? All-round leader, keeper, top-notch. But I think his kicking gets way overstated. And we saw, I think, obviously for the goal, he tried that Bandulu kick, right? Went straight back to City. They went down the other end.
You know what? He's done it before, and he's actually done it for Salah against City before.
Yeah. So, that kick? What, the long pass?
Like, he's done that pass.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying to you. He's got decent distribution. He's got that in his bag. But I'm saying to you, but the thing is when you do it and you fail, I think he did it in that half one time. I think there was another time when he lost it, when he did like he did something similar to Ramsdale, right? Do you remember when he tried to chip it? Yeah.
He tried to chip it to like the left back, and he just hit the phone.
Yeah, like, you see what I'm trying to say to you. So like, he does have those moments in his game, right? So it's like, I don't want to criticize him. I'm not trying to criticize him, say overall. I'm just like, I always see these pundits talk about him and Edison as these phenomenal distributing keepers. I'm like, don't put Edison up there. Don't put Alisson on that pedestal in terms of distribution. Alisson's the best all-round goalkeeper, but his kicking is nowhere near the likes of Edison. I wouldn't even say it's a level below Onana, because I've seen Onana do some
distribution is right. Do you know when you know a keeper is good at distributing? It's not about whether they can pass or they can ping it, because you give enough players that amount of time, they can do it.
Yeah.
It's when, and I noticed it with not with Alisson, but when Ramsdale. So you know when he made the first mistake and Declan Rice played it off the line. I literally watched it back on Twitter, the replay, like 4 or 5 times. I was like, what is the problem here? Is it the fact that you're not comfortable passing? Is it that there was no options? And I come to the conclusion that when the ball's played to him, like when the ball's played to any other player, we spoke about it at one of the beginning games of the season. Your first touch has to give you as many options as you need it to give you. So I remember we spoke about it with Trent, actually, when Van Dijk pumped it into Trent in the game and his first touch was terrible. But depending on where your first touch goes and how it is, it opens up the pitch. Yeah. And in the Arsenal game, Gabriel passed it to Ramsdale, and Ramsdale's first touch automatically only allows him to pass one way. So as a Brentford player, you're now thinking, if I press this zone, it can only go one way. There can only be one outcome from this. Whereas if your first touch is open, you can then do the little pass across your goal to Saliba. You can chip it. You can go back the other way. And he's not comfortable with the ball in and around his feet for long periods unless he has mountains of space. So for me, it's just like whenever Ederson gets the ball, it's not even about what pass is he going to make. It's players don't want to press him. They don't want to press Onana because when he takes that first touch, the possibilities to get that ball past you are limitless. Yeah. Whereas other keepers don't have that same variety. They don't have that same presence and that touch. That's what I noticed.
I mean, I think I agree with that, but I also think it's a combination of, I feel like, just like with midfielders, when you think about the best midfielders, right, that we've seen in Premier League history on the ball, what makes them a cut above the rest is that when they are pressed, that they don't feel that pressure on them. So the difference is as well also is that when I think there was a moment where Ederson was pressed in the Liverpool game, and he then played like this. He kind of whipped this ball round the player into the center of the pitch, 30, 40 yards, and now the ball's by the halfway line. And it's like he's being pressured, but he's not fazed by it, right? The likes of, you can phase the likes of Ramsdale, you can phase the likes of Alisson at times, right? When pressing them. Ederson very rarely is phased. I think he's so confident and comfortable on the ball, right? Like a top midfielder is, that he's like.
I think we're getting it wrong. Like these guys can pass, but they can't play
under pressure.
They don't have the vision to play like that, but they can pass the ball if you give them enough time. But they just don't have the ability to play like an on-field player. Whereas Ederson, he has a different vision in his head of what he wants to do with the ball, like an on-field player, like a centre midfielder.
Yeah, it's like the simplest analogy I can give it. It's like penalties, right? You take penalties in the training ground, no pressure. Most of your squad will score. You put them under the lights, crowd, etc. Something to play for, and a lot of people lose their legs, right? And it's the same thing in with the goalkeeper situation, where it's like you put Ederson in them situations where he's being pressed, he's got players running at him, and he's still comfortable. And the likes of Ramsdale and others, right? Alisson in that game, they lose that confidence and that comfortability to do it in those positions. They can do it with no pressure, but that's easy for most. They're professional footballers, right? They've been training all their lives for this. But under the spotlight, under that pressure, is a whole different thing, man. So, but yeah, going back to the game, man. I also saw one thing that I found interesting. Haaland's a bully. I tell you why Haaland's a bully. Every run he made in that first half. I noticed it more in the first half. All his runs were down the left-hand side of the right-hand side of Liverpool's, which meant he was targeting Matip. He weren't running at Van Dijk, and I just thought, this guy here, is the epitome of a bully. Man knows who his victim is here, and he knows who he's going to sting. He was targeting Matip. He just said, I don't want it with Virgil, right? Even the goal comes from Matip's side as well. But the whole game, it was just targeting him. It was just funny. But you got to shout out Haaland anyway, because I think, 50 goals in 48 games?
48, bro. He's with 10, I think, 10 penalties as well? Which is like a low blow in it, because I think Andy Cole got there with none, or with so it is a bit of a low blow, but you get what you're given, and he dispatches them. He's missed a couple, so he could have got there faster, to be fair.
Man.
Shout out to him. So going off that, who's gonna be more happy with that point? Or
100% Liverpool, man. Liverpool. You when you go away to your title rivals, right, and you take a point away from them at home, you're the happier side. Because you will think or you will bank on or bet on them coming to Anfield and you being able to take points with them, to take the 3 points. And Liverpool got a decent record against City at Anfield. So I feel 100%. And it's also a marker for Liverpool as well. I mean, I thought Liverpool in general defended better than I've seen them defend most games. I mean, I've criticised them a lot, even though the defensive record has been good. I also feel like a lot of it has been kind of, they have been saved by Van Dijk and the likes of Alisson on many occasions. So like even though they've got the best record, or they had the best record for the joint best record for defense or goals conceded, their potential XG against was a lot higher than it should be. So that was always what I criticised. But I saw a very much more competitive Liverpool team. I feel like they still have gaps in that team. You can still see the likes of McAllister as a 6. Just not it, man. Really not it. And they really need to address that problem. And yeah, I feel like that team would be so much better when they have someone like a McAllister who's a lot more comfortable on the ball, a lot more technically secure as an 8, and have a proper, athletic ball-winning 6 in that team to kind of help, solidify them. But I think Liverpool are going to be over the moon, man. You go to the Etihad. If we went to the Etihad and got a point, I'd be over the moon.
100%.
Because you
have to do that. Before that, they'd won their last 23.
Yeah.
Not drawn. They'd won every single game this year.
Yeah, this year.
So, I mean, you go there and get a point. Could have come away with 3. Could have come away with none. You're happy with it. It keeps you in the loop. It keeps you up the top of the table, challenging. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think Liverpool will see that as a point gained. But at the same time, I don't think City will see it as 2 points dropped per se. But
I mean, I think from City's perspective, in a way they would, because when you're at home, just generally speaking, I think just the general rule of thumb is you want to win your home games, right? So I think, and that was one of the big things even when we played City, was we need to win this as a home game because we don't have a great record at the Etihad. So I think from a City perspective, it would be some disappointment that they didn't win the game, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think they're going to be in some sort of disarray or stressed out by it. I just feel like they will be, that was a little bit of a chance to kind of like knock Liverpool, right, and kind of like put them, give them a little kick down and show them that they're not at that level no more. Whereas I think Liverpool rose, man.
Hey, so well, as we're finishing talking about what was the starting top 2 going into the weekend, we now look at the number 1 team currently. And as you said, Havertz sends sluggish Arsenal to the top of the table.
Yeah, that's the no lies told, bro. I'll let you start on this, man. You give me your thoughts, because obviously, we're in the group chat. We pass some messages over and whatnot, but let's hear your thoughts on the game and how you felt about the performance. And
it was a really tough game to watch in terms of Arsenal this whole season have struggled to break this low block down. And be that with Odegaard in the team, with starting Martinelli, Jesus, Saka, right now, we've just really struggled to find ways to break teams down more easily. Because obviously we have broken them down eventually because we've won games, and sometimes it hasn't been pretty, like the game against Brentford. But it's just been hard to watch. I know how difficult it is to sit and watch 11 men behind the ball and try and break it down with no space. But I feel like Arteta needs to employ different tactics and different players in different areas if that's not going to be the case. So, for example, we brought on Havertz last 13 minutes or something to go, 10 minutes, and we brought on Eddie before him. But watching the game, Brentford were only giving us the wings, but with double ups. So we kept getting it. Martinelli was crossing it back post. Saka was coming in. But you're looking up and they're looking at Trossard. They're looking at Jesus. And unless it's a pinpoint cross onto their heads, this is not how we're going to score a goal. Like, we're clearly not able to currently break through the lines and break them down that way. So we're going on the outside and trying to whip a few balls in, which Brentford are obviously very good and adept at defending. So for me, I was watching it thinking, if we're going to do the crossing, then why not bring someone on that's going to do some heading? And in the end, we won it that way. But I can see that that's what we're doing. I don't understand why I didn't see that earlier. So obviously that wasn't the game plan at the start. He wanted his team to break down Brentford and score through playing good football. But that wasn't the case. And after like the 60th minute, I feel like you see what this game's going to be. We're not breaking them down. So now we need to start flooding this box with some physical presence. Whether Havertz scores or not, he's going to cause an issue in the box, and then it might drop to someone else. You win the seconds, different things happen. And for me, it took us too long to come to that conclusion. But I'm happy with the 3 points. We have different. I know we spoke about Tomiyasu and what he offers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, what's it called? We'll get into Tomiyasu and what's it called? Because I am a fan of Tomiyasu. I don't want it to get misconstrued or looked at in the wrong way. I'm a big fan of Tomiyasu, and I think he's the perfect lockdown defender, right? In terms of when you come up against certain teams, the bigger sides, and you want to be more defensively sturdy, bring in a Tomiyasu to either play left back, he'll help, shut up shop or help shut out the opposition attack, and that's where he shines for me on his versatility. But I also feel like when Ben White isn't in the squad, we don't have that threat from that right back position, in the sense of his passing is a lot more safer. He doesn't overlap. He doesn't have the threat of the overlap. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Ben White is Reece James when he overlaps, but he does hold a decent threat. I don't think Tomiyasu holds any. I think Tomiyasu is just more of a decoy with there's nothing really to come of it if he does get that ball.
Yeah, he just tries. Yeah, I get you.
Right, yeah, and as a result, I don't think there's a fear when he does it anyways. Like, I don't think if you've got Tomiyasu overlapping, I don't think you're really worried. Whereas the likes of if you had like a Reece James or whoever, or even a Ben White, there's a little bit more threat that goes with that overlap, because he can at times deliver something or a cut or a pass or some nice little intricate bits of play. But yeah, I mean, like to kind of echo on your point, man, I thought it was a very dry game, man, and a game that lacked a lot of quality. And I've been saying this to you in the group chat, but that left 8 is a problem, and I've been saying it all season and we've seen it because we've rotated. How many players have come into that left 8 through the season? We've had Fabio Vieira there. We've tried Declan Rice there for certain games. We've had Havertz play there, right? Trossard to the thing, right? And I was, when I saw Trossard playing there, I was a bit like, I wasn't really happy when I saw that to begin with, because I saw him against Barcelona in the 8, and I didn't think he shone in the left 8. I don't think he excels in that role. Like, even though he's a very technical footballer and people sometimes want to liken him to Cazorla, but Trossard is a final third player. Like, you put him closer to the edge of the box, right? And that's where he can kind of shines. But when there's space and whatnot, I don't think when there's a lot of space to kind of cover, I wouldn't want Trossard in those areas of the pitch. And that's why sometimes I don't like him on that left wing, because I don't feel like for certain games he doesn't have a threat in transition. So he's easy to keep quiet. But if you're in a game like a Brentford where they've got 11 players behind the ball, and that's why I wasn't too opposed to him staying on the pitch when Martinelli came off, is he's got better ball manipulation than a Martinelli. So when they're doubling up and whatnot, he'll do a shimmy, he'll drop a shoulder, he'll try and do some interplays, where I feel like Martinelli's a bit more straightforward. He'll just try and hit the byline. There isn't as much intricacy to his game or combinations. But yeah, and I've been saying that left side is missing Granit Xhaka, and people can argue he's also missing Thomas Partey. But the reason why I like to go onto Granit Xhaka is that I feel like even if Partey was in that team, we'd have that forward passing to find a lot of these players a lot quicker. The likes of, I feel like Martin Odegaard is struggling a lot because he doesn't get the ball in a lot of the areas of last season where he was able to hurt teams because we don't penetrate as quickly. We don't play those passes through the middle to find him. And that's been a reoccurring theme throughout most of the season. I also feel like on that right-hand side, Martin Odegaard as a right attacking 8 is not helping us because we both have Saka and Martin Odegaard that want to cut onto that left foot. So there's no threat of the overlap. And I liken it, and I've said this before, and about Liverpool. One thing I really liked about Liverpool early on in the season is that I used to see Szoboszlai in that right centre midfield position, and he would go in the overlap. And the amount of time it creates space for Salah to drive inwards, or for Salah to move inwards into that position in the pitch. And it's just, you can create those movements, but then there's never a fear. If Martin Odegaard is running down that wing, you're not really worried about him using his right foot because you know he's not comfortable doing it, and he's always going to cut back and play a safe pass and just keep the ball moving. So, yeah, that left 8 is a huge issue for me. And even the pace, I think we've kind of slowed. We've obviously gone for more control this season, right? So we've got the least goals conceded, the least XG against, right? So a control seems to be, the least shots against. So we're really trying to add a level of control, but with that control sometimes becomes too safe. So there's almost that balance of, because they don't want to lose the ball. When they get to certain situations, they're just moving it around very slowly with no kind of like purpose. Like when you look at Liverpool, right, and when Liverpool attack, Liverpool are very vertical. Like it's just straight bang. Like I
don't think our issue last season. Obviously, Jesus operates as a false 9, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of like inverse of like he's kind of a bit of both, but more like he's more like he doesn't stay in that position. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say he's a false 9 because he's not like Firmino, but I wouldn't say he's a 9.
Bro, do you know what he is, bro? He's a false 9 and he's a false striker. He's a combination of both, bro. He's half and half, bro. I don't know what that is, bro.
Last year, when we were playing that fast-paced football, it works because there's so many players that can come in. It sets off Martinelli. It sets off that. It makes it make sense. But because we've gone for the more controlled game now, we don't need him to come in.
Yeah.
Because we're playing so slow that both our 8s can get into them positions. And if he drops in, then where's the threat? Which is why I think that Arsenal and the fans are calling for that big Ivan Toney, that Osimhen, that Ferguson. Because now we're getting the ball into these positions and we need our 9 to be there. We don't need you no more to come in because it takes us so long to get the ball there anyway. Our players are all in position. We're ready. They receive it there. So I feel like we need a different type of player up top now if we're going to play this way.
But then couldn't you argue that as well? That I'll give you an instance. Like there was instances in that game when Zinchenko was inverted, right, and he'd play like he'd push the ball in between the lines with some pace, right, to Jesus, and instantly it would quicken up the attack. Now Jesus, I think there was one when Jesus span and Pinnock got a block on, but we don't do those type of combinations enough, and we don't have enough players that make those type of passes for me. Because I feel like, yes, I do understand with more control that we don't have that space of counter like we did last season or to exploit the space. But what you still do have is you still have the ability to manipulate the ball with pace, right? To play passes with pace, to push the ball between the lines. And we don't do that as much. And I think it's a combination of not having the right players. So I don't think, and this is why I say I don't think, I miss Granit Xhaka and I miss Thomas Partey, is because those two players, if you ask me, are better at playing passes between the lines than a Declan Rice for instance, or even a Trossard, right? In that. So, and we've seen that constantly. So I feel like we're not able to do what City do, because City constantly will have players that will hit them. Rodri will do them constantly. You'll have another player, Bernardo, will zip a pass in between the lines to another player, combine quick combinations, and it will just quicken up the pace a bit. But we tend to do things at more of a slow pace because we don't have players capable of finding them players in them pockets who can execute the pass.
There's two. The only outcome is that either Arteta's saying that this is how it needs to go, or the players are not comfortable with doing it.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's comfort, man. Because I think if you had Declan Rice as a 6, right, and you had, let's say, Granit Xhaka, for instance, as a left 8, for instance, he was way more comfortable of playing passes between the lines. Like, say what you want about Granit Xhaka and his deficiencies, and we all can acknowledge we wanted an upgrade on him. I'm not trying to do some revisionism, because we all knew that we needed a better attacking threat than that offered a bit more penetration going forward. But in terms of build-up play, Granit Xhaka was comfortable and was a good controller, could take the ball in deep, control the pace, but was also good at punching balls between the lines, finding players.
It works both ways, though. So he is good at punching it through the lines, but he was always deep enough to do it.
Right.
Because the problem that Granit had when we watched as fans was when he was the one receiving it after it being punched into him, nothing happened. But when he was the one that was doing it,
right,
it was good stuff.
But
now, if Declan Rice is receiving after being punched, he's not the most adept at spinning with it. He needs to have it and then face you and go.
Right. So
and these are the issues that we're facing. Our team's a bit more unbalanced than it should be.
And that's why I would actually prioritize a left 8 over a striker for me, because I feel like if we had one player in there along with, say, Thomas Partey to come back as well, if you bring in 2 more players that are more comfortable in the build-up phase of the game and can help you move that ball a lot more quicker in your attack, then that will overall your attack will then become more fluid, because you'll be able to manipulate that ball a lot quicker and give your opponents a lot more issues. Whereas now it's just too safe, in your face, side to side, and slowly trying to kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like death of 1,000 passes, but that only works when you're winning, right? If you're trying to break a team down and you're just building up in front of them, like Brentford were very comfortable for large spells in that game.
I do totally agree, but I do think that the way, like I said, the way Jesus plays and comes does not help the way our midfield now play. So if we're going to play like this, he needs to now go and occupy the centre-backs at all times and keep that space available for our 2 8s.
Yeah.
Because if all 3 of you are going to be occupying that space, the centre-backs are now going to push in on you as well. And that space is going to be very congested. And why am I going to pump the ball into there when it's going to be very tricky for you to work your way out of it?
No, I just mean even if it's you punch that ball into to then play a combination with somebody.
Yeah.
Because if you know what I'm trying to say to you, so you a one-touch lay off and then all of a sudden now you're moving defenders around. You're putting defenders in positions where they don't want to be. Now they're having to ask questions. Do I go to the ball? Do I stay with Jesus? It's little things like that. It's like you then make the team, you ask certain questions of the defenders and whatnot. Right now, I don't think we're asking enough questions. And I feel like, as nice as this is right now, I feel like there are going to be games where we need our attack to be able to pose more questions, because you can only do this for so long. In the same way that you can only be attacking and not defensively stable for so long. You need to have the right balance, right? If you look at every Premier League winning team in history, you'd say they had a good balance. They defended well, they scored goals, right? It's a combination of both. It's never a thing where they win the whole season by winning like just, you know what I mean, like just shithousing their way to wins.
So obviously Havertz, who I said will get 12 goals and assists at the end of the season, had another one to his game at the end.
It's an illustrious tally, bro. What's it at now?
Was that 4? Got 2 assists, 2 goals.
Okay.
He needs
in November?
The season. You don't think that he's hitting 12 goals and assists?
Bro, listen, I pray so, bro. I pray so. I have doubts. I told you, man. Like, for me, Havertz is a battered woman. Yeah, like for a woman in a shelter, it's like a sheltered woman, right, from a battered home, and he's broken and he needs to be built up. He needs loving and he needs to find himself and find God and feel in love with himself and feel, you know what I mean. But I hope so, bro. I hope so, man, because it was. Oh, definitely, bro. Because the penalty was a sin-free penalty. He didn't even want to celebrate. Yeah, and I felt, if anything, that penalty might have even done worse, because it was a pity penalty, bro.
So right? I know, you know, the fans know,
everybody
knows.
Bro. The fact that man was ashamed to celebrate, you knew he felt. Yeah, I'm trying to say to you, he felt like, these lot really feel for me, like they must take me for an idiot, bro. Like, so, and then for him to wheel away and actually celebrate, I'm trying to say to you, and actually you could see the enjoyment of one of that. That's a good moment for him, man. And I've seen Chelsea fans in the past say, he's had moments like this for them, but I hope this can give him like that little bit to kick on and try and.
I hope to see him more as a nine. I hope that when we do use him in games, especially games like that where not home game, maybe not so much home games, but when we're away and we're against a low block and teams that don't really want to come out, and we can use them to occupy the defenders, leave that space for Odegaard to now move, to bounce it off you, for Martinelli to go in behind. I feel like we need to use that a bit more going forward, and hopefully we'll see it. We'll see it, because I feel like his best game has been when he's been up top.
Bro, no, I definitely agree with that. And I remember, I think we had like 8 corners that game, right? And if you look at our team, if you think about our midfield two of Odegaard and Trossard, yeah. There you go. Like, you look at that midfield, the height is non-existent in that midfield, really. So when you have another player like a Havertz in there, so you got now Declan Rice, Havertz, Saliba, Gabriel, you got, 4 6-foot+ man mountains in opposition area that can go and attack the ball. It adds a significant threat, and you got Tomiyasu again, who's another 6-foot+. So it creates that threat, and we saw it even for the combination for the City goal. I think it was Tomiyasu, Havertz, right?
Yeah.
Combining again. So yeah, man, it's definitely a big thing, man. I do want to shout out Zinchenko, man, in that game as well, because I thought he was outstanding defensively. I mean, and it's not something that usually I would associate with him. I think he had some really nice deliveries from the half space in that first half, where he was kind of like, where he was crossing it in. I think Trossard had a header away from that, where he should have done better. And the only real kind of mistake of note I remember from Trossard, I think there was one instance where he lost the ball that led to a half chance from them where they crossed it in the second half. But other than that, man, like when you look at the defensive nous, or the awareness to kind of come back and get that challenge off the line, that attempt off the line, it was solid, man. And obviously he's getting better he's having a bit more influence this season on the ball. So yeah, man. And then obviously shout out Arteta, because that's 200 games in charge at Arsenal. I think he's got
best record, 116 wins, I think.
Yeah, 116 wins, 34 drawn.
So 50 losses. Yeah.
50 losses, yeah, man. So 58% win streak, man. And that's 2% higher than Wenger's, man. So yeah, man.
And he started with less, so.
Right, yeah, man. And when you look at that first half of that season, the first half of his tenure, it was horrible, man. That first year, when you look at it, I think it was a complete struggle, man. So yeah, that's big, man.
Obviously, Arsenal top of the league. We love to see it. Hopefully, we can stay there and end there this year. But we'll take them as come. I think we've got some favourable fixtures coming up, so hopefully they can take full advantage and just cement their spot by the end of it.
I think Wolves, Luton, and I think we got Villa. Then we got Villa away, which is a tough one.
And West Ham. Then West Ham at home.
And then Brighton, right?
Yeah.
So a few tough ones, but yeah, man, we move, man.
But now we go on to another tough game, or what was a tough game for one team, as Chelsea were taken apart by Newcastle, man.
Right.
They got knocked back down to earth after a couple. What would we call them? A couple of results that were putting them in the right direction.
After a 4-4 win.
They got knocked straight back down to where they are. And I mean, some of it was through their own fault, like Reece James doing stupidness. They're giving away free kicks left, right, and centre to someone that has the quality that Trippier has to deliver. And before Reece James got sent off, they were under the cosh, but whether they were going to lose the game in the manner that they did, I wasn't sure. But after that, it was just like, okay, well,
yeah,
it's only going one way. But yeah, for me, Chelsea were, to me, both teams are actually quite fixated on thinking that they deserve to be in the top 4 and they're that team now. But one's clearly at a different stage to the other.
No, definitely, bro. I mean, I mean, going back to what you said about the whole Reece James red card. I mean, it was silly. Like, you know, like one for petulance, kicking the ball away, a yellow card for that, and then the other for bringing Gordon down. Like when you're on a yellow card, you know, you're supposed to be. I was hearing, you know, shouts after, you know, the Man City game. Like, this is why, you know, James is the best right back in the world, and blah 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 blah, and you know, best English right back, and then you know, you take a silly yellow card when you're already 3-1 down, and you're about to miss a big game against Brighton, right? When you've been struggling all season and you barely play, like you've got fitness issues. So that in itself is,
and he's their captain.
Yeah, there you go, man. And then I think Cucurella also picked up a yellow card on top of that as well. So he also misses the Brighton game. So you're looking at two players. I think Gusto's also potentially injured for that as well. Or he was injured during the Newcastle game. So again, that's another player they could be missing in that wing-back position. I know what's his name's out as well. Chilwell. So they could be left with like Disasi and Colwell playing right back and left back, right? Against Brighton. So, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, I mean, look, Chelsea, 4-4 win against Man City, come back, go up to, you know what I mean, go all the way up to Newcastle, hold 4. It's not looking good, man. And when it went down to 3-1, they capitulated. And it's funny because that's not something that it's not usually a word that you associate with Chelsea. It's more something you associate with Spurs, isn't it? So, you know, the question is this the Poch effect, right? Is this the Poch effect? That's the real question, bro. Because
I think like what he's working with isn't the most ideal in terms of the young mixture of random players that he's got going on there. There's no real balance to the squad. When you're still having to play, as good as Thiago Silva is, when you're still having to play him in every game as your best centre back as well,
right?
There's a problem.
You know what though? Listen, I'm gonna keep it 100, bro. I'm tired of making excuses for Chelsea. Like, I'm seeing Tottenham put out 4 fullbacks in defence and give Villa a game. Yeah, we'll get onto that game as well very quickly later on. But like, I can't make mistakes. I can't make excuses for them. Like, this is a team that spent 1 billion. Yeah, they've still got some solid players in there. Badiashile is probably better than any of the Tottenham centre backs that played against Villa, right? You've got Reece James, who's won a Champions League, you know, Gallagher, who's Premier League proven, played at Palace, played at Chelsea, right? So you've got players, Thiago Silva, all the honours he's won in his thing. So we're talking like this is some, you know, Raheem Sterling. We're talking about this team like this is Arsenal's team when they had Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe carrying them. Like, that's not really it. I know they lack some leaders and some experience, right? And some players that can actually, you know, take the game by the scruff of the neck. Chat to players in game and tell them, yo, listen, like, now we need to do A, B, and C and fix up, right? But I think I think we're getting to the point where we're making too much excuses for them, because I'm not hearing this with Ange. Like Tottenham are down to the bare bones, and they're still putting out performances, right? Yeah, they got beaten by Villa, but anyone could hold smoke to Villa at the moment. Villa are a good team, yeah. And if anything, right, they were a bit unlucky. Like, to go up to Newcastle and to capitulate and to get bullied. And Newcastle are a team that have got the most injuries in the league. Let's also put that into perspective as well.
They started a 17-year-old in centre mid.
Right, they got one Miley Cyrus in midfield, yeah, right.
Bro, he was moving like a wrecking ball, my brother.
Bro, he was, and he got that lovely assist for Isak. But again, like, so I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, like, Chelsea played. You know what I mean? They got Tonali's on a ban, yeah, right, on a betting ban. They got all their injuries, right, and they still managed to go out there. Their defense is missing Botman and everybody. They got Jamal Lascelles playing centre back, who they don't want nowhere near that starting 11. They don't.
Scoring goals, though. Scoring goals.
Bro, he is scoring goals, bro. But he was also trying to give away goals, bro. Yeah, I'm trying to say to you. So it's like, I'm not here for hearing all this Chelsea talk, this Chelsea defense league. I'm not about that, you know. Like, I'm gonna keep it 100. They got more than enough for them. I mean, Sterling pulled out a special free kick, bro. Yeah, right? Something that you don't really see from Sterling, bro. Like them FIFA free kicks, bro. Them, you know what I mean? Like just straight over the wall, bang, top bins. Yeah. I was like, right, okay, cool. I was like, you know what, Chelsea might turn a corner. I was like, all right, this is interesting. Let's see how it happens. Then you got Thiago Silva trying to do up Anthony in right back position. They get a corner. I think Newcastle get a corner from there, and then I think that's when Miley plays that ball into Isak and he gets his goal. And then you had another moment where Thiago Silva has like a senior moment. Man's got dementia, doesn't know where he is, loses his feet, confused, calling for his family, you know, calling it out for favelas. You know what I mean? Where am I? And then gives it to, and then sees Joe Linton, sees, Brazilian, give the ball to the Brazilian. Joe Linton goes in and scores. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I ain't got no sympathy for them, bro. And they can hold that, bro. All that money spent, yeah. All that money spent, and you're still shit. You're still struggling.
I hear you. I just feel like the club's not being run the way it should. Obviously, all the money spent, but
you know what? You don't hold that same energy for United, right? And I think United is worse because with Chelsea, at least, there's enough talent in that squad overall where I can be like, okay, they've got a good right winger. They got Cole Palmer. They got this player. They got this player. They got some talents in there. I could be like, cool. Like you can do something. You can work with that. Like we've seen young teams do decent things, right?
Yeah.
When you got a Beyblade in Anthony on the wing, yeah. When you got Casemiro who looks like he's 50 in centre midfield, yeah, right, and he's struggling, his lungs are burning up, bro, yeah. And then I'm looking at United, and you got that fridge head Harry Maguire in centre back, yeah, struggling, running like he's carrying a fridge, bro, yeah, like he's got a fridge on his back. I'm looking at United and the amount of energy and shots we sent their way. I'm like, bro, hold on, like, in my opinion, Chelsea have recruited way better than United have. Let's keep it facts. Like a lot of United's.
The difference is though, when Chelsea recruited, it wasn't Pochettino recruiting.
But
so
again,
even though he's got these players to work with, he still has his idea of how to work with him, how he likes to work.
Whereas, but you know, I don't buy into that, bro, because he took the job and he knew what he was working with, right? And when you're a head coach and you know that they're going to bring players that are going to, and they recruit you for your philosophy and the type of football that you bring in, you know that it's going to be a match. Like if you look at it, right?
You know, it's a job. If I offer you 100 bags,
yeah,
right now to do a job that you don't want to do, you're taking the job.
I hear. Listen, I hear you in that regards, but I also say this, Poch. If we're going to keep it 100 and we're going to keep it 100, if I look at the Chelsea squad and I look at the United squad, yeah. And I said to you, who's more equipped to play a certain type of brand of football than the other, right? I'm going to sit here and tell you Chelsea are more equipped to play the brand of football that they want to play, right? And I think Ten Hag has been dog shit, yeah, in terms of what he's done, like from a philosophical point and bringing United to play football. So I'm not going to sit here and start making excuses for Poch because he's got type of players that Poch shined in. This is what Poch did at Tottenham. He took a young Tottenham team, built them up, right? Helped the likes of Dele Alli, Kane, all these players evolve, grow. Son came in. You know what I'm trying to say to you? Built it, you know what I mean? They had Sanchez, yeah, that bum Sanchez. Yeah, he was working, you know what I'm trying to say to you? Eric Dyer had them playing solid to a point where Dyer was about to move to United for 50, 60 million at one stage, bro. Right? So, like, I don't want to do revisionism on all this. Like, Poch is used to working with young talents and getting the best out of them. And they've got enough young talents to do something. I'm not expecting them to title charge, but you need to be performing. You need to be doing better than you are. And boy, like I said, man, it's going to be interesting. I think they've got Brighton next. Yeah, I mean, without the two, so Disasi and Cole left back, right back, interesting partnerships. Could be lovely to see. It will be interesting to see Matoma running at them. Yeah, I mean, and who's the other brother? I can't remember his name now. The guy they signed, he plays on the right wing. Black brother.
For who?
Brighton.
Is it Sengar? It's not Sengar. With the blonde hair in his head.
Yeah. Look cold in pre-season, bro. But yeah, bro, like they're gonna have him. They're gonna have two wingers that are dribblers and who will run at them, fearless, and it'll be interesting, man. And they put themselves in a bad situation. And if you compare them and Man United in particular, look how bad we've been talking about Man United. And Man United are 6th.
only 6 points off the top.
Bro, exactly. And they've been a shambles, bro. So, boy, you know what I'm trying to say to Chelsea, it's looking long, bro. It's looking long, boy. And then obviously you got your charges looming. So, you know what I mean, I wish you nothing but the worst. I wish you nothing but the worst, bro. I can't even think. I hope it gets worse, bro. I want to see Poch in you know what I mean, in the doldrums, bro. I want to see him struggling. I want to see him losing his hair, bro. I want to see him looking like Ten Hag, bro. Yeah, I'm trying to say to him, Pep Guardiola by the end of his tenure, bro. I'm tired of this team, bro.
We'll have Chelsea, don't worry. I've hated Chelsea ever since Mourinho stepped foot in that door. So,
bro. But yeah, man, long may it continue, man. Huh? Up the Blues, man. Chelsea.
As we started speaking about Eric and his red men, we go into United as they got another 3 points against luckless Everton, whilst also sneaking in a goal of the season contender.
Right.
How do you want to start on that one?
So that goal was cold, bro. That goal was cold.
It was epic. Someone asked me if it was the best, if it was better than Rooney's.
And 100. For me, it was just because of the way that ball, the way that ball had like a little swerve to it, like
the technique in the goal itself, yeah. But because Rooney done it in a Manchester derby to win the game against City, I just have to go with Rooney. Like, is Garnacho's doing that against City to win? I don't know.
I mean, look, I'm looking at it more as a purist in terms of, if you're looking at the moment, of course, Rooney's moment was better. But if you're looking at a goal, when I look at a goal, I'm looking more at like the technique and the skill level of the goal. So if you're asking me about the skill and technique level, I would put Garnacho's over Rooney's, because I think Rooney shinned his, yeah. And if you look at like Garnacho, the way he had to maneuver his body, he had to move, like he took his few steps to get onto that. And then also, it's not something that you would associate with somebody of his body type as well. Like, he's a small player. You know what I'm trying to say to you? Diminutive, tricky winger. Like, you don't expect him to get that leap and that connection and generate that kind of power onto a shot like that. That was cold, bro. That was absolutely cold. Like, when I saw that, I was like, yo, that was different. That was different, bro. And
it was deserved. United have obviously been the most informed team, as you said, last 5 games. They're picking up points. I think they're masking over these holes.
Oh, they are. But I want to ask you a question, because I've been out for a little while, innit? What we say about Onana this game? Because I saw a decent, I saw enough performance from I mean, the black goalkeeper. Huh?
Against Everton?
Yeah, show me.
He had a good game against Everton, but he's come up against people that don't score goals anyway.
No, but for me, he was a big part of why Man United were level in that first half, because in that first half, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I've never thought he was an exceptional goalkeeper, and I've actually got something that I saw online today, actually, which was interesting. Yeah, which is in regards to shots faced. And there was an argument that I made to you last time. You and OJ, you laughed at me still, and I said to you, when you look at, generally speaking, when you sign a goalkeeper for philosophy, you're not expecting them to be a goalkeeper that faces like shots on shots, yeah. So if you can compare it to, say, like the likes of Arsenal, yeah. Arsenal have faced 18 shots this season, yeah. 28 shots this season, right? Man City have had 35 shots this season, yeah. Luton Town have had 72. Do you know how many Man United have had?
Like 66
shots, bro. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying to you. So that's why I'm like, it's kind of hard for me to stick on to him, because you don't sign him just for shot stopping or primarily just as a shot stopper. You want him to be a team that controls the game, helps you build up, and then obviously he'll have to face shots. He has to be decent at it, but he's not a specialist at that. And yeah, man, I think it was nice to see him, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really see many black goalkeepers, you know what I'm saying to you? He had the whole specs, you know what I mean? The whole black goalkeeper thing, you know what I'm trying to say to you? So it's nice to see, you know what I mean? Like, as much as I hate United, I mean, since Dida, since, you know what I mean? You don't really get them, so it's good to see.
Yeah, he's getting back. He's got the most clean sheets so far in the league.
Yeah.
And that's just,
and he's growing in stature, man, in terms of confidence, you can see.
Always pick up these kind of results and just stay in the loop. They never ever really just totally fall off that whole bandwagon. So I expect them to pick up 3 points there. Then I expect them to go next week and draw. But
who do they go next week?
I think that's just where they are right now. I'm gonna go out a limb and say, is it Burnley?
I'll tell you who they got next week. I know they got what's it called
Oh,
next?
they've got Newcastle away. They've got
Yeah, Newcastle away. There you go.
And that's when you're gonna see what their team's actually made of.
Yeah, I think they got Galatasaray away. Yeah, on Wednesday.
And if they don't win that game, they're more or less they're out. So
yeah, so that'd be interesting. And then obviously they got Newcastle, and then they got Chelsea. Yeah, so those are three solid games.
So this is where we'll see what Man United are really made of. What Eric has got his team doing. Like, you beat Galatasaray away, that's a big result. You're going away in the Champions League in Europe to a very hostile place, needing a win. You come out of that with a win, you're like, okay, that was a big test to overcome. You then go to Newcastle away, which is a major test for anyone in the league. You come out of there with anything, draw, you're thinking, all right, because they beat teams at home. By big, like they overwhelm teams. And then you've got to go and beat the whipping boys Chelsea, right? Even though Chelsea do play better against the better teams, you have to go and beat them.
They do.
So I've got to shout out Kirby Melo, who was very, very good. I don't feel like he needed to be that good, and he was tested that much, but I can't take away anything from an 18-year-old putting on such a professional of age performance. Like, it was a very good performance, and he didn't look out of place at all. If anything, he looked like the best midfielder on the pitch.
Bro, I was taken back by that performance, to be fair. To be like, because I always say, like, even when you look at young midfielders coming into the Premier League, like when I saw, the likes of Cesc Fabregas come into the Premier League, you look for the experienced players to support them and to kind of like, to be the guidance on that pitch. And it was more like you saw Mainu, kind of bossing them around. Him going and calling for the ball, wanting the ball in difficult areas, trying to play.
At one point, just stand on the ball and stay still. And he said, "Are you going to press me?" Like, he just decided, we're not moving until I decide to move. He's 18, playing an away game and now North team. And for me, that it just showed his type of character.
No, definitely, bro, and his skill set and his intelligence, man. And I remember there was the off the line clearance he had. Yeah, which was again shows his anticipation, his defensive nous. For him to be having that level of contribution for your first game, to be the most dominant player in that midfield area, and when you associate midfield, when you talk about midfield, you're talking about intelligence, maturity, leadership. It's a position where you need experience mostly to have that, and it takes time for players to find their feet. And that's why a lot of these youngsters end up going on loan and having to kind of blood their, and kind of learn that know-how for the game elsewhere in the lower leagues or in a lesser league, right? So for him, or a lesser team with less pressure, but for him to go into Man United, to go to Goodson Park, which is not an easy ground, especially with what's going on with the 10-point deduction, with the stress, with the pressure that's on United, right? And then for him to be the staple and the leader of that midfield, right? That takes some sort of special character, and that is more of a testament to the player than anything, because you can be techie, right? You can have the ability, but the mindset, like, no, I'm that guy. This is me, right? And that is what I respect more than anything, for him to imprint himself onto that United team. And you look at him now, and you're like, well, you had Amrabat on the bench, right? He's not getting dropped, like, off that performance. Like, next game he's starting that game. When they go to Galatasaray, right?
We love the performance.
Sorry,
we love that performance, but the hype that he's been getting, and rightly so, because of the quality he has, the next 3 games will really show what he's on.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because I feel like he'll only be able to do what he can do. So I'm not. It won't be the results. Like,
not the results per se. It's about how he fares in the middle against Galatasaray, against that physical Newcastle free, against Chelsea, who can also, they have £200 million players, and how he fares against these will show what he made for me. So yeah, that's I think where I'm at with seeing Maino and what he can bring. But United as a whole, they picked up the 3 points. I don't think it was, after they did get the first goal, I don't think it was the hardest game for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they saw it out. The game opened up a bit more and they put Everton to bed. But I won't judge United on games like that. But they're going to do what they need to do, and that's what they've been doing. Hence why they're only 6 points off the top, even with the bad season that they're having. So, yeah, you know me, I fucking hate United, and I will do anything to put them down at any given time. But then, as shit as they're playing, and as fucked up as that club is, they're doing all right. And
yeah, no, they are, man.
I wouldn't be too unhappy. Like like still not right, but they're not the worst when it's not right. It's not like Chelsea right now. So I wouldn't be as angry as what social media make it out.
Yeah, no, I hear you, bro. I mean, look, I just think, like I said, man, I think for a young kid to come in and stamp himself in an away ground in the Premier League is deserves a lot of plaudits. And obviously, right, we're not trying to put him as an ex-Messiah or to save him for Man United or the man that's going to carry them. But in terms of technically, he looks more comfortable, more secure than any of the midfielders, more better at progressing the ball than any of the midfielders. So, you know, regardless of what they think, I think moving forward, they've got a player there that is going to save them a lot of money and a lot of headache moving forward, regardless, right? Whether it's Ten Hag there, whether it's, you know, someone else that comes in, they've got an 8 there who's you know, press resistant, who's good on the ball, comfortable on the ball, and can grow, right? If that's a glimpse of what's to come, then that's something special. But yeah, man, United, as bad as they've been, you know, 2 points behind Tottenham, who everyone's been lauding up, who everyone's been praising, right? So even if they lose to Newcastle, I think they're United right now, for as bad as they've been, for everything that's been going on with the club and all the headaches and whatnot. I think their main aim is just to stay around in Champions League spots, because they're not, you know, title challenges is out of the question, right? So all they've got to do is
6 points behind.
Yeah, but let's be honest, man. They're not ready for a title challenge, bro. Like we both know ball in it, so I'm not going to sit here and be disingenuous.
I wouldn't be putting them up for a title challenge, but the way and stuff talk, I feel like we're just going to have to throw them in there just because.
Nah, I don't. You know what? When I see a lot of United fans, man, and even when they talk about Everton, like that first half, they could have held court. They were lucky, right? And the second half they did a lot better, but that first half they were lucky. So I think a lot of them are aware of where they are right now. So I would think United's aim right now is just to try and get a point at Newcastle. You know, I don't think of 3 points is possible for them, right?
I hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Try and get a point at Newcastle. So yeah,
I think we go into
I think
our last topic.
I think enough on United, man. Let's move on to Spurs, isn't it?
Our last topic, just briefly, because before we even talk about the game, at the start of the season, I remember you talking about Unai. Oh, we've lost him for a second. But can I do it without him? Like at the start of the season, I remember Mr. Y. I remember you talking about Unai and what Unai does in the league when he's in European competition. And so far, so wrong. So far, so wrong, my brother. Because Unai is doing things.
But you know what, yeah? I'll keep it 100 though, right? I didn't foresee, or I forgot to kind of fixate on the fact that it was Conference League, which is a different level in terms of Europe. That's what it is, yeah. Because let's keep it 100, yeah. Conference League, he can rotate heavily and still get results and win that group easily. So I don't think, especially in that group stage, I think Europa League, when you look at what it's doing to Brighton, when you see how difficult it is for them, even Liverpool, as good as Liverpool are, they haven't won every single game. I think they lost their last game to Toulouse. So it's a lot more difficult than you think. And even that as well, like Liverpool can rotate because they've got a Champions League squad ready built. But the one thing about Villa actually, and that the more I look at that squad is a lot more built for, to challenge on both fronts. I don't mean for a league, but to do well in both competitions than most teams. Like they've got quite a deep squad, man, and yeah, they've done well, man, in terms of like,
Villa watching it. Their firepower is very good.
Yeah, bro. I wanted DRB, bro.
I think they're one injury away. Well, they're one Ollie Watkins injury away from it not being such a big problem. Not because he's like amazing. It's just that I don't feel like they have anyone else that can do what he's doing.
But then wouldn't you say that about most teams? Like, let's do we can apply that same logic to City. Yeah, right.
You can apply
You apply that to Saka at Arsenal, right? Arsenal get sack injury. Like we're holding thing. You apply that.
Yeah,
maybe
I think the problem is the drop off. Who's Watkins next? Like, if Watkins gets injured, who goes there?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think they've got a natural replacement for Watkins in the same thing. But I think it's very much like how I look at Watkins as what I look at almost like Haaland for City, right? It's like if City lose Haaland, they lose their only natural goal scorer, right, or their main natural goal scorer. And the drop of Alvarez as a striker, as an out-and-out striker, does not have nowhere near the same effect of a Haaland, right? He's better at other things, but he won't be able to give you that same threat and be able to pin centre backs in that same way. And I don't even mean pin them by holding them off. I just mean pin them because he's just there in that space. Defenders won't vacate that space because Haaland's there. So I think it's very similar in that regards. But I also think, I think we also need to look at Villa as well, because as good of a win that was, and you can. I'm all up for praising results. Like Tottenham stuck it on them, and for me, I walked out of that game more impressed with Tottenham than I was at Villa.
I totally agree with you, as much as it's hard to see, because I saw the lineup and I saw 4 fullbacks in defence. That's the first thing I saw, and I was like, "Are they crazy?" Because Villa score goals. And I was like, "Okay." I watched the first 20 minutes of that game. And I was like, why can't Villa get out their half? Tottenham were pushing, they had chances. They got caught offside so many times. And I think that was the biggest issue for Spurs.
Son scored a hat-trick of offside goals, bro.
So, I think that was the biggest issue. And it obviously caused the most issues, because Spurs could have had that game wrapped up in the first half.
Bro, definitely, bro.
They didn't, and then obviously Villa took advantage and held on. So good win for me, good win for Villa. Villa are playing some really good attacking football.
That highlight's ridiculous though, man. Like the amount of times that they nearly got caught out with that highlight. Like, I mean, look, we all criticised Ange when he had his highlight against Chelsea, and that high line at times that Villa were playing was like suicide. And these are the little kind of things I have about Emery and the criticisms I have in regards to Emery. Like, he can do things well, but and also there's a level in which you can do things as well. Like doing things at Villa is a lot more different to doing things at a Arsenal, United, and Liverpool. There's so much more pressure, even at Chelsea, right? There's so much more pressure involved. And again, one of the things I have to say about Emery is he's still very much a pragmatic manager, right? There is no real style of play. There are little elements, but he's very much adaptable. It's very much like they'll change game to game to game. Like if it's a big game, they'll change for their opponents. Whereas when you look at the likes of a Tottenham, like even with all the injuries, for instance, you see that same philosophy. Like the way Tottenham were moving that ball around, and the fluidity and their interchanging and the speed of combinations and the way they pass the ball forward, even with the changes. Bentancur came off Højbjerg came on, they were still playing that same ball. You got Emerson Royale, you got Davies, you got you got so many absolutely trash ballers, and they're still playing football in that same way. And again, that's one thing I credit Ange about, and that's why I always prefer those type of managers to an Emery, because they have a long-term ideology or philosophy of playing football. And yeah, you should be able to adapt to the ideology and be able to change and tweak it for certain games. But I don't think it should always be changing drastically, game to game to game to game, right? And the only thing that they stick with is, the way they attack, which is, they attack with pace, they hit the ball in behind, they like to cross the ball in, try and find Watkins. Like, those are the kind of fundamental principles that they stick with, right? And we used to see at Arsenal with training clips with Emery always crossing, like, like how he was getting them to try and cross the ball in and all them things there. But yeah, man, no, I credit Villa and what they're doing. Obviously, Ollie Watkins, physical specimen, tall 9, pace, that quick backlift, that quick ability to let that shot off with no backlift. And he's growing as a player, man. He's growing as a player, and I like his profile as a player, because I like a man that's got the ability to hold up the ball, but also offer a threat in behind. Because in European games and big games, you need that. Because when you're playing the likes of Cities, the Arsenals, the Chelseas, the Tottenhams, you'll get space behind those defenders, and you need to be able to exploit that. But yeah, man, I feel like Tottenham, for me, are the ones that I left that game thinking, what, Ange is good. It's going to be very interesting to see what Ange can build with his team and how far he can take his team. And I think my only doubt about Ange is how adaptable he is, because I think he's got the philosophy thing on smash, yeah, and he's got this idea of how he wants to play the game, but he also needs to know about how to tweak it and how to adapt it for certain games. You can't just be so rigid in your thinking of the game. Like, even Pep makes changes. You know what I'm trying to say to you? Klopp makes changes. It's not always the same thing over and over again. So that would be what kind of, for me, would either make him a top manager or make him just those, another Bielsa, a manager that just plays that fancy shit.
Just on Spurs to end, like, obviously it's three losses in a row now, and they've come crashing back down to being real Spursy.
First team in history.
Yeah, after I saw Jamie O'Hara talking about why can't they win the league, but they've come crashing back down. It's lovely to see. It doesn't get any easier for them in their next game. What do you think? What do you see happening there?
Again, it's going to be interesting, because I do feel like they will give City problems. They will 100% give City problems, but they will also be given problems because of the way they defend and who they've got defending. I think Romero will be back for that game, if I'm not mistaken. Bassoon will definitely be back, because he had
Ange employed that high line that he did against Chelsea against Man City. Well,
he employs that high line regardless. So he just made the high line against Chelsea. For me, my criticism against Ange wasn't the fact that he employed a high line against Chelsea. It was the fact that he had a high line to begin with, and he went down to 10 men and he said, "You know what? I'm going to make this line higher." That's what I criticized. To me, that was the insanity aspect of it. It wasn't that he employed a high line.
But if you play on the high, so I understand playing the high line so you can compress the pitch into a certain level. But to play that, you have to have defenders that can go the other way very quickly too. When you have Van de Ven, it makes a bit of sense because his pace is outrageous. But when he's not playing, you can't do the same thing. It was like when Arsenal were playing last year and Saliba got injured, and then we tried to play the high line with Rob Holding. You can't do it no more because that player can't do it. And Man City tore us apart with Haaland and De Bruyne running the other way.
Right.
This is why I ask you, when Haaland's running the other way against whoever the hell's chasing him in that Tottenham defence now, what are they going to do?
I mean, look, it's risk versus reward. So I don't think, again, like I said, I think they will employ it because they want to press, they want to be aggressive, and that's how they'll win the ball back and they'll get themselves into attacking areas, and it will give City some trouble, because we saw that aggression give Chelsea trouble. Chelsea's aggression gives City trouble, right? With the high energy and whatnot. So I think it can give them some sort of trouble. But I also know that their high line will also be exploited because of the likes of Haaland. I mean, Chelsea didn't play with as a high line of a Tottenham. So I think Tottenham will definitely have issues. I just don't see Ange doing what he did against Chelsea, because with Chelsea, he just said he doubled down and said, okay, fuck this, I'm going to make my line even higher. You know what I'm trying to say to you? Right? Which to me was that was suicide in itself. But again, man, like, you want to be brave in when you play these big teams, because if you sit back and you don't attack City, and you haven't got good defenders, you're gonna hold smoke anyways, right? Like, if you've got all those right backs and left backs, the fullbacks playing centre back and whatnot, you ain't gonna do well against Haaland and them anyways, from crosses and from from a low block anyways. So you might as well try and be more aggressive and try and attack them, because that's where you're strong as well. You've got the likes of Son, you've got Brennan Johnson, who's got some pace. Edoji can cause havoc. Obviously, Bassoon will be back, so Bassoon is a good ball winner with energy. So SAR's there. So I'm trying to say to you, you'll have a bit more ability to kind of run this thing. I don't think Romero's back, actually. I'm just trying to think. Is this their third game since? So Romero missed. What games did Romero miss?
Might miss this one as well.
Yeah, he's missing this one, isn't it? Yeah, it's peak still.
So,
listen, I very rarely root for Tottenham, but them months, this is one of them games where I wouldn't mind Tottenham.
We need them this week.
Yeah, I'm trying to say to you, we do, bro. But I mean, expect Tottenham to be Tottenham, innit? So it is what it is.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap up.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Please leave some comments if you want us to talk about anything else, if you want us to talk about anything in the future. Subscribe, hit the notification buttons, or set your notifications so when we post you can see anything. Follow us on all our socials. It's all the same, the OTP pod. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Twitter. And yeah, Mr. Y, it's been great to have you back. Great for you to share your knowledge.
I'd love to be back, bro, man. Yeah, man. People just subscribe. You know what I mean? It's all free. Doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? Helps with the algorithm and all them things there. So just man, run it up and peace.
All right, guys. You'll see us again. Thanks for tuning in. That's the OTP pod out.
Yeah.